Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Miss LaJoy here. I want to go over some use of parallel and perpendicular lines when we're looking at finding the equation of a line. So, first of all, remember that the equation of a line, as I said before, is y equals mx plus b. The m is the slope of the line, and the b is the y-intercept. Now, this is information that we need to be able to graph a line. So I want to go over with you how we find the equation of a line with some kind of different parameters. So first of all, let's say that we have an equation that is y equals 2x plus 4. In this equation, 2 is the slope and 4 is the y-intercept. That means that when I graph this line, I start at positive 4 on the y-axis. I put a dot there, and then I have a slope of 2, which means I'm going to go up by 2 over by 1 to graph that line. Now, if I have a question that says, if you take a look at the worksheet I posted yesterday, part 2 says, find the equation of a line given a parallel or perpendicular line and a point. So, for example, actually let's clear this now. So the first question in part 2 says that the line is going to go through 4, positive 4, negative 4, and it's parallel to y equals negative x minus 4. So in the line that it's parallel to, the slope is negative 1, because it says negative x, slope is negative 1, and the y-intercept is negative 4. Okay, so parallel and perpendicular slopes. Parallel, you know that parallel lines mean two lines that run beside each other. They never cross. So if I have this line here, y equals negative x minus 4, and I know that my slope is negative 1. It's going to keep running with that negative 1 slope. Negative 1 slope means it's going to go down by 1, over by 1, down by 1, over by 1. Now, any other line that has the same slope is going to be parallel. So it doesn't matter where it starts on the y, it doesn't matter what the y-intercept is, because no matter where it starts, it's moving at the same rate. It's moving at that negative 1 slope. So parallel slope, parallel lines, have the same slope. So, for example, this question here, we have one line that has a slope of negative 1 and a y-intercept of negative 4. If we have this information here that says it's going to run through 4 and negative 4, we can plug those 2 points in to find our new y-intercept. So, to be able to graph that line. So, if we use the information that y equals mx plus b, we're going to use this slope of negative 1, and we're going to use these 2 points. Remember, this is an x and this is a y. So if I plug those points in with the slope, I can figure out what the y-intercept is, what the b is. So my y will be -4. My my slope is -1. The x I'm going to plug in is 4 plus b. I don't know what b is. So let's work through this. So -1 times 4 is going to be -4. So I have -4 equals -4 plus b. If I want to solve for b, I'm going to isolate b. So I'm going to move this -4 to the other side. So -4 becomes +4 on the other side. So -4 plus 4 equals b. So -4 plus 4 is going to be 0 equals b. So this line is going to have, so y equals my slope of -1, -1, oh, let's just say -1x. My b is 0, so I'm not going to write it, because that means it's crossing the y-axis at 0. So let me graph these lines and show you what they look like. All right, so the two lines that I'm going to graph are, the first one from the question was y equals -x minus 4. So -x means I have a slope of -1, and this -4 is my y-intercept. So to graph this line, I'm going to start at -4, put a dot right there, and I have a slope of -1. So that means I'm going to go down by 1 over by 1, down by 1 over by 1, down by 1 over by 1. To do the other part of the line, remember, we're going to do the opposite. So I'm going to go back to where I started at -4, and I'll do the opposite to do the back of the line. So I'm going to go up by 1, back by 1, up by 1, back by 1. Oops. Up by 1, back by 1. Up by 1, back by 1. Up 1, back 1. Up 1, back 1. Up 1, back 1. All right. So that's what this line looks like, okay? And I'll change the color, and we'll do the other line. So remember that the information that we just did was that we had a parallel line, and it was going through the point 4 and -4. So when we worked that out, we found that the y-intercept would actually be 0. So the next line looks like y equals -x, right? Because the y-intercept was 0, so it would be like +0. So that means we don't have to write this +0, but I'm just showing you that when we worked it out, that our y-intercept was 0. So if we were to graph this line, if our y-intercept is 0, we're going to put a dot right here at 0. But we have the same slope, right? So I'm going to go down by 1, over by 1. Down by 1, over by 1. Down 1, over 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 1. And again, we do the back of the line by doing the opposite. So up 1, back 1. Up 1, back 1. Up 1, back 1. Up 1, back 1. Back 1. Up 1, back 1. Oops. Okay. So we have two lines now, and you can see that they're parallel lines. So they're parallel, and we know that they're parallel because they have this the same slope. So even if you were just looking at these two equations of lines, y equals negative x minus 4 and y equals negative x with a 0 y-intercept, we know that these two lines are parallel because they have the same slope. Now, the other part of that question, or that section, is perpendicular slope. So let's look at a perpendicular slope. Now we're going to look at perpendicular slope. So this one says that it goes through the point 2 and 0, and it's perpendicular to y equals 2 over 3x. So that means that first of all, let's graph this line that it's going to be perpendicular to. So this line, because there is no y-intercept, that means our y-intercept is 0, right? Because it could be like plus 0. But it's not, because there's no reason to write that. So in order to graph this, we know that we start at 0 because that's where our y-intercept is. And we have a slope of 2 over 3. So that means that we're going to go up by 2 and over by 3. Right there. And then again up by 2 and over by 3. Now to do the other side of the line, we go back to where we started and do the opposite. So that means we're going to go down by 2 and back by 3. And then down by 2 and back by 3. So that's what this line looks like. So now perpendicular are going to be lines that cross, right? Parallel, they run beside each other and never cross, but perpendicular is the opposite. So a perpendicular slope is the negative reciprocal. So negative reciprocal means it's going to be flipped with the opposite sign. So if we have a slope of 2 over 3, the negative reciprocal is negative 3 over 2. I've flipped my fraction to make it 3 over 2, and I've changed the sign, so it makes it negative 3 over 2. So if we have this question here that it has a perpendicular slope and it goes through the points 2 and 0, let's change the color. We can figure out what our y-intercept is by plugging this information in. So again, equation of the line is y equals mx plus b. My m is going to be this perpendicular slope. And my x and y that I'm going to plug in are going to be these ones here, x and y. So my y is 0 equals my negative reciprocal slope is negative 3 over 2 times my x, which is 2, plus b, which we're trying to find. So now we have to multiply this fraction here. So 0 equals, so negative 3 over 2 times 2. Remember, there's that imaginary 1 underneath the 2, and when we multiply fractions, we just multiply straight top and bottom. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, and 2 times 1 is 2, plus b. Now we can reduce this fraction here -6 divided by 2 is -3, right? So 0 equals -3 plus b. Now to figure out what our b is, I'm going to take this and rearrange it. We have to isolate for b. Let's do that right over here. So I'm going to move the 3 to the other side. So -3 on the other side is +3 equals b, right? Because it's just 0 on the other side. So +3 plus 0 is still 3. So that means the equation of this perpendicular line is going to be y equals my negative reciprocal slope, which is -3 over 2, and my y-intercept we just found was was 3, so plus 3. That's our other line. Now the question doesn't ask you to graph it, but I'm going to graph it to show you what it looks like. Because we were just asked to, this is our answer here. We were asked to find the equation of the line. So this line starts at +3. So I'm going to put a dot right here at +3. And we have a slope of -3 over 2, which means we have to go down by 3 and over by 2. So 1, 2, 3, and over by 2. Again, down by 3, 1, 2, 3, and over by 2, down by 3, and over by 2. Now to do the other side of the line again, we do the opposite. So we start here, and we would go up by 3, and back by 2. So there's my two lines. You can see that they cross. If we had drawn our lines with a ruler, we would see them cross somewhere in this area here, right? So they cross because they're perpendicular. So that's what you've been asked to do in that second part. And I'm going to leave this with you today. So you're going to find the equation of the line, either parallel or perpendicular.